Good morning. You listen to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Bill Blackstock, the president and CEO of the RFCI, the Resilient Floor Covering Institute. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kemp. We're on the third day of our meeting here, so I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse this morning, but it's always good to get up early and talk to you.
Your organization meets twice a year. You're at your spring meeting, which is at Sea Island at the Cloister, and you've got I think 90 or so of your members there, and I think you're addressing some of the key issues that the Resilient Floor Covering Institute is facing right now. Background on you, Bill, you've been leading this organization for 2.5 years. You spent much of your career in the commercial carpet business with J&J and EF, and then 29 years at Milliken, and you're a Georgia Tech grad. Let's talk about the highlights of your meeting. Before we get to that, though, we just finished our annual report, the May issue of Floor Focus. We were looking at the results of 23 versus 22, and the business was down 10.5%, all categories, both commercial, residential, every surface. And Resilient was down just a hair more. We've all had a little bit of a dip, haven't we?
Yeah, and I always appreciate in every discussion with you, how's business? It's the right way to begin any discussion on any topic that we're going into on the call. As far as the meeting goes, Kemp, you've been to these before. You were at the last one, and you know one of the things that we do is we bring in truly world-class economists to come in and to take a look at the market in relation to building products. We spent yesterday a couple of hours on this topic. Just in the short time we got together today, just a couple of broad points on this to address your question. One is, even with the winds that are blowing now on multiple fronts, there's a reason in the floor covering industry for optimism, in my opinion. Single family, you and I could talk for the next hour on key parameters there, but I'll just point to one issue, and that issue is the shortfall of bills, the units that we're behind in providing on single family. If you play out the models, and we spend time looking at those models, and our wonderful guest yesterday got very specific on this, when these interest rates start to subside and a couple other factors put at play, all of a sudden we're looking at this into the millions of homes on the single family coming into the market. So interest rates have a lot to do with that, as you well know, and a couple of other factors. Multifamily is in a time of correction right now. We believe that correction period will end in 2025. We think we have our eyes on when the quarter is going to be on that. Institutional is institutional. Even during some of the hardest periods over the years, institutional is always a good market. Office is a year of correction in 2025 ahead, but there's some good signals coming from there. You know, when you look at these markets, Kemp, you've got new builds and then you've got remodeling. And one thing on the resilient side, this has been true for some time and will be true in the future, is on both fronts, but particularly with the size of the remodeling market, when you look at the force vectors that are at play there, even with the broad signs from the economy, there are undercurrents there that are very positive in nature as well. And then just a couple other watch outs. Hospitality, a heck of a year going. When you stay in a hotel room these days, if it's a new build or if it's a renovation, you're likely on resilient floors. And the data centers that are out there. You know, I was with over 100 people last night. The key word is optimism about the markets that are ahead and optimism about resilience play in it. When you get to the key factors in resilient that make it the product that it is in the marketplace to the consumer on the residential and commercial side, it just addresses issues. That's a long answer to your question, but that's a synopsis of a big discussion yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bright future ahead. Let's real quick just run through. I know you do a great job of bringing in great speakers. I think you had the Stuckey's family member there this trip. Who else is speaking at your event?
So, you know, we have our board meeting. Yesterday's board meeting was 4.5 hours long. And then we go into the all-member portion where every member, we have 47 companies who comprise RFCI today. So the entire membership comes together. And yes, Stephanie Stuckey is here. I've been following her journey since it began. It's an amazing one. She was at dinner last night. She's going to be speaking today. As you know, she's got a great new book out. And Kemp, you better believe we had the pecan logs for all of our guests here too. So in front of their seats, I got those two things. There was no way we're going to have Stephanie Stuckey without an inspiring story. So a major economist yesterday was with us looking specifically at housing and building products. And then we moved from there into one of the state of Georgia's key leaders in workforce development. I met him at the fall conference at the University of Georgia last year, and I saw over 300 people in this, one of the most unbelievable conferences on discussing an issue that had to be addressed. He led that. We had one of the nation's branding leaders on creating company brands in yesterday as well. And then you know my love of Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is leading the way on AI, and we had their leader on AI with us yesterday. And Kemp, we had to stop questions at the end of that one because they kept coming. Because we all know that the pace of change that's going to take place in supply chain, manufacturing, and all other fronts, this train is moving faster than anyone I've ever had before. Today, our lead counsel, who is one of the most talented people I've ever worked with, is going to be giving a summary of the regulatory world. My good friend Ned Monroe from the Vinyl Institute is here. And then Stephanie closes us out there, and a wonderful dinner tonight. So that's a little bit of the architecture that we have. Energy's high. I wish I could articulate the energy here, and that leads me to one other point, is you sit there in these rooms and you look out across it. RFCI is composed of the leaders within the resilient category, the leaders of those organizations, and it's just humbling. It's humbling to sit in the same room and to engage with them. So there's a little overview of it.
Okay. I know Russ Rogue is your chairman. He's with Metroflor HMTX, and I know he's actively there this trip. So what are just a couple of your key objectives for this year, what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's 6. I'm not going to go into all 6 out of respect on time, but, Kemp, at the end of the day, an association is in that space as the law allows beyond the scope of a single company. So we're focused on that space like a laser, and obviously that space for us is resilient floor covering. On 2 of the 6 initiatives there, we spend, as everyone does, we spend time on regulatory at the federal and the state level. We're very specific to that, trying to make sure that factual information makes its way to the table in those very important discussions. And then when you're an association in the flooring business, you spend time on all things technical. In prioritization, I've never had a 1, 2A, 2B, that sort of thing, but I literally couldn't decouple technical issues with issues of sustainability. Those are intrinsically tied together. So those are, of the 6, those are the top 2 items that are there. We spend a lot of time talking about our Beautifully Responsible campaign. Kemp, we always set lofty goals for that. It's millions and millions of people are impacted by Beautifully Responsible each year. Got 2 new incredible videos out. So that's just a taste. Answering your question, people ask me, they say, at 50,000 feet, what is your organization? And my answer is short. We are a very strategic organization. We are working on strategy in that space.
Okay, Bill. Well, thanks for giving us a quick update on what's been going on at your meeting this week at the Cloister. Again, been talking to Bill Blackstock, the CEO and president of the RFCI, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.